Hi there, chaplaincy friends. Our month of February's theme is Love Thy Neighbor. So to honor that theme, we will be making some dog toys, which we will be donating to a community organization that can benefit from them. Love thy neighbor, love thy community, love thyself. So to make the dog toy craft, you should have some instructions and you should also have 2 different sets of fabric. In this video, we will be working on the triple braided dog toy. So for this one, you will need to grab the thicker bundle of fabric, and you'll also need to pull out your instructions. Page 1 is all information on how to make your triple braided dog toy. So we'll lay all this out. In your bundle of fabric, you should have 9 different pieces of fabric. So we'll set those down and we'll take a look at our instructions. So instruction step 1 says to cut the strips of fabric, and it gives the measurement of how big it needs to be. We have already cut the fabric for you, so we can go ahead and start on instruction 2. So step 2 says we're going to lay out 3 strips of fabric. So in my opinion, it's easier to use different colored fabric if you can. So I'm going to pull out 3 different pieces of fabric, and then I'm going to lie those out flat on the table. You should have 3 strips of fabric all laid on top of each other. And we are going to take our fabric and we are going to tie an overhand knot to secure it. So we want to make sure that we tie our overhand knot a little loose because we are going to untie it later. So to do an overhand knot, you're just going to pull it through like this, make a little circle, pull the end through the little circle. Don't tighten it too much, leave it loose. There's also in the instructions a little picture that will show you how to tie an overhand knot. So now that we've got our overhand knot tied, we are ready to start. So we're going to need to lay our fabric flat out on the table because we are going to braid it. My best advice is to find something either to hold this down, or you can tape it to the table, or you can pin it to your clothes while you do it. But find some way to hold this and secure it. I went ahead and I found a paperweight and I laid that on the top of my knot to secure it. So once you've got that secured so you're able to work on it, we're going to move the fabric out so it's all separated. So you should have it all out. And we're going to start braiding. To braid, you're going to take the outer side, bring it over the middle, bring the opposite outer side over the new middle, opposite outer side over the new middle, and you're just going to repeat those steps. In your instructions, there's also a little picture that'll show you how to braid. So go ahead and braid the first one, continuing that pattern of pulling the sides in over the middle, and just keep repeating it until it's braided all the way down. As you're braiding, try and keep the braid as tight as you can. So just tighten it as you pull the braid. And you're going to braid until you have just a little bit of fabric left. So I'm going to stop here because my yellow is getting a little small. And then we're going to secure this end of the braid with another overhand knot, just like we did the top one. Again, with this one, we're going to want to keep it a little loose so we can untie it later. So go ahead and knot that. And then you should have a braid with both ends tied. So we'll set the first braid aside for now. Now we're going to move on and work on our second braid. So you need to pull out another 3 pieces of fabric and lay them on top of each other. We're then going to tie another loose overhand knot at the top of the fabric to secure the 3 pieces together. You want it to be loose enough that you can untie it later. So once you got that loose overhand knot, you can find a way to hold your fabric still while you work on it. So once again, you can put it underneath something such as a paperweight. You could tape it to the table or pin it to yourself. So we're going to repeat everything we did with the first braid with the second braid. So we'll go ahead and separate that fabric, and then we can begin braiding it almost all the way to the bottom, making sure our braid is tight. Just like we did with the first braid, once we're almost all the way to the bottom, we're going to tie another loose overhand knot here. We want it to be loose enough that we can untie it later, but we just want to secure the braid for now. So go ahead and tie a loose overhand knot at the bottom of that braid. Now that we're finished working on our first 2 braids, we're going to work on our final braid. So you're going to take the final 3 pieces of your fabric and we're going to lie them on top of one another, just like we did with the first 2 braids. And where you can go ahead, tie a loose overhand knot at the top to secure it, loose enough to untie it later. Once again, secure your fabric so you can work on it. So use a paperweight, tape it to the table, or pin it to yourself. We'll move the fabric out, separate it, and then we will begin braiding it. We're going to braid it all the way to the bottom, well, almost all the way to the bottom, just like we did with the first 2, making sure our braid is tight as we go through it. So go ahead and braid your final 3 pieces of fabric. So once we are finished braiding our final braid, and we've got a little bit of fabric left, instead of tying this one, we are going to lay it aside just as it is with one side untied. And then we are going to go and take our other 2 braids and we're also going to untie one end of each braid. So we'll take our 3 braids with the untied ends and we're going to lay them all together. And then we are going to tie a overhand knot at the top of the 3 braids to secure it. This knot needs to be tight as we will not be untying it. Once we have our 3 braids braided together and we're almost near the bottom, we are going to untie the 3 loose knots we tied earlier, and then we are going to tie them together just like we did the top. So go ahead and untie those 3 knots. Once you have the 3 knots untied, we're going to tie another knot to secure the 3 braids together just like we did at the top. So go ahead and tie a knot. Overhand knots work best, but any knot to secure them that it won't come undone will work. Once you have that end knotted, you've finished your dog toy. You should have all 3 braids braided together and both ends should be securely knotted so they won't come undone when the dogs play with it. If you want, you can take a pair of scissors and you can trim some of your ends if you don't like them. Say like maybe you don't like how they're different sizes or whatever. If you don't want to do that, fabulous, you're done. So now we can set that aside and once we're finished both of our dog toys, we need to make sure that we return them to the chaplaincy. That way we can donate all the dog toys together to a community organization. I hope you guys had fun making your dog toys. Bye guys.